I disagree with the president that we need prayers. It's not that we need prayers. We are given free will by God. Okay? We choose to be corrupt and we choose not to be corrupt. So right now, with prayers or no prayers, the most important thing is for us to be able to be candid with each other and to sit down and put numbers on the ground. We never even spend the night in our homes. So you'll come in, you go in there for like a couple of hours, you don't even see your kids, and then the next day in the morning you're up back in Wilson Airport, or you go and sleep in Pokot, you go to Turkana. Where was Mbadi then? I mean, let's just call a spade a spade.
Did
you listen to the Hot Breakfast this morning? Here's what you missed.
I only campaigned for about 2 weeks.
That's it?
For my seat, yes.
Why? You'd been doing such a fantastic job, but there's no competition?
Well, 2 things actually. One, you just nailed it. I've been doing an amazing job. I mean, my track record speaks for itself. And then I was also committed in making sure that Baba gets into office. But unfortunately, the gods had other ideas. Yes.
The gods, it's just you guys who drop the ball.
Yeah, both. But I mean, ultimately, it's our God who makes the decision. I mean, you're given free will, so it depends on how you use it. So if we thought maybe the Benjamins were better than actually doing the job, then we got our will.
Yeah. But do you feel like also your team spent a lot of time hitting the other instead of... in hindsight, when you look at what happened, you wish you could have done things differently. Yeah.
I think, let's be candid. The other team was more organized than us. We may hate to agree that, but I like being very open and candid that the other team were more organized than we were, And I think it's a lesson learned. And I think we had too many centers doing their own things and not talking to each other. So I think that's why we lost.
Too many cooks spoil the broth.
And we also believed that other people will take care of, other issues, like the issues of agents. And I'm speaking from a point of informed, where I travel around the country. I went to, even in my own county, I went around different polling stations. I didn't sleep. I was making sure that I protect my votes.
What do you mean by protect my votes? Because IEBC had put a system in place where votes can't just disappear.
Let me tell you. You see, the thing is, I don't really give a hoot in hell about our IEBC system. I cared about my own system. My own system was to make sure that I take care of my agents. I feed them. I show them love. I make sure that they don't get tired. I make sure they get to the polling station in style. If whoever wants to take a motorbike, I pay for it. Whoever wants a vehicle, I pay for the vehicle. So they feel like they're just going to, they are not going to go through, hell when they're actually working for you. Because you remember the hours of voting, Voting was done very well. The work begins when you start counting the votes. That's when the work really begins. So really, I had to make sure that my people were safe, they were protected, and they did their job.
So did we have any agents for your team, or someone just, because I had at some point the day before voting, the whole of them was sent away, and they said they've got new ones, but there's no logistics on how to organize them, because that's what I read.
I think let me put it this way. We first of all need to go sit down and meet and discuss and evaluate everything and say what went wrong. Today, let's talk about cattle wrestling. Because sometimes I really get pissed off when I remember that we could have done things differently, but we didn't. So we need to be candid with each other. We need to go out and say, hey, what happened in your area? Who was in charge of the agents? Were the agents paid? Who appointed the agents? So that we can be able to point the blame at a particular person.
And work on a better campaign.
And actually work on a better campaign for the future.
It looks like you guys worked really hard, but not hard enough.
I think we gave it all we could. I think we did what we could, but I think we just need to pull up our socks. Yes.
Is ODM dying a slow death?
or it's dead.
No. ODM is a democratic party, and I think we are allowed to have a divergence of opinions, and I think it's common in every political party, and particularly a political party which is democratic. Raila is a Democrat, and Raila most like allow us to be able to cough, say whatever we need to say. But looking at the recent wrangles in the party in terms of leadership, I think it's about time that we also think about the future generations. We cannot continue doing things the same way and expect to get new results. What we need to do now is to give young blood an opportunity to lead. We need, it's not, let me not put it as a reward system, but we need to give credit where credit is due. Right now, in the Kenyan political system, or rather the presidential system that we have, we don't really have a room for opposition. What we have room for is to have an arm of government which can be able to then put the interest of the people first. Parliament, even if we have the majority and the minority, really ought to consider and say, we have the pass. We've been blessed with the pass. How do we then hand this pass to the executive to be able to implement projects that we want? Because an executive will come in with a budget. If we do not check that budget, if we do not scrutinize the government policies, then we'll be failing.
So does Azimio have the numbers? Are you the majority?
It is not about the numbers. Let me tell you, Jeff, it is not about the numbers. We can talk about the numbers. We can make it as simple as the numbers. But the bigger question, which is now what I want to challenge the younger generation, I want to challenge those people who put us in the office to be able to take us to task. People of Narok elected me to be able to oversight on their resources. I have to do that work diligently, whether or not I'm in ODM or not. So what I'm saying is this: even though we have the government, or the national government, or the executive, let me put it that way, is formed by, Kenya Kwanza, right? When you come to the legislative arm of government, if you go to the National Assembly, it's not quantum physics, Jeff. Azimio has the numbers because of the agreements they had with all other political parties. So that one is not quantum physics. If you come to the Senate...
If the Speaker rules otherwise, what if the Speaker...
What is the Speaker ruling? Let me ask you, what is the Speaker ruling? People keep on talking about Speaker ruling. What is he going to rule about?
The Speaker last week said...
The Speaker is simply going... And I know Weta very well, who is my colleague in the Senate. I know he's a true defender of the rule of law. The clerk will submit to him what the register of political parties have submitted in terms of the membership of the coalition and their agreements. Okay? Jeff, if you get into a marriage, you cannot just simply walk away and say, I'm divorcing you today, and that's it. There's a process. No one says there's no divorce. Divorce is there and it's accepted. But you have to follow through the process. And the process is very simple. What these gentlemen sign up for? If you look at PA as an example, if you look at my friends Mandeleo Chap as another example, if you look at UDM, those three signed an agreement with ODM, Jubilee, Wiper, and about other 20 other political parties. And in that agreement, they agreed that it is okay to divorce, it is okay to walk out of the coalition. But you have to do that, you have to begin the process 3 months after the elections. Okay? And then 3 months after the elections, which is November 9th, you give a 90-day notice and say, now I'm beginning the process of separation. It is like Brexit. It's that simple. If you don't understand, you need now to go and take Google and say, how did Brexit happen? Did it just happen one day that the UK said, now we are now out of the European Union? No, it takes a process. So my understanding of the law, and also my understanding of that agreement, leads me to believe that the Speaker of the National Assembly will then take those agreements and look at them, and he'll be guided by the clerk in the legal office in the National Assembly. And then he'll come back and read and say, all right, gentlemen, as per the agreements which are in the custody of the political parties, registered political parties, these are the political parties that forms Kenya Kwanza. These are the political parties that form Azimio. The bigger question, and this is what Kenyans really need to try to enlighten themselves on, is on the issue of Section 2A of the Political Parties Act. What does it say? How do you define a political party? What is Azimio? Azimio is a coalition political party. It was registered, and the definition of a political party was extended to allow any political party, and in this case the only one that took advantage of that was Azimio, to be able to say we can field in a candidate from another political party as a running mate, like in the issue, because this was a big problem in 2013 with what's his name, Kalonzo Musyoka, because Kalonzo Musyoka being the leader of Wiper and Raila Amolo Odinga being the leader of ODM, there's no way that they could go in as a candidate and the running mate. Kalonzo had actually to become a member of ODM for him to be able to run. So because of all these things, the law is not static, it keeps on changing. We now became wiser, and we expanded the definition of a political party to include a coalition of political parties. That's number one. Then you were given a certificate that you can now use that certificate, and in case where you now filled in candidates, many candidates, and you win candidates, you will share the loot. Okay? You will share the money. Because the registered political party is just about to start dividing the money on which political party has many seats and how much money they get. Number two, if you look at the arrangement of Kenya Kwanza, the arrangement of Kenya Kwanza is not a coalition party. Okay? It is different. They had to register, and they had to be recognized as coalitions coming together. But if you know very well, most of the candidates who got in there were UDA. Okay? And in fact, if you look at how many members of UDA are in the Senate, Ruto is a very smart guy. How many members of UDA are in the National Assembly? So they are the majority. So really, this issue of a coalition party, because I know the argument was going to say that Azimio does not have the members, that was just an added benefit. So those are the things that Speaker Weta is going to be able to discuss, and any ruling that he is going to give must be guided by the law. Section 10 of the Political Parties Amendment, the Political Parties Act, Section 2A of the Political Amendment Act, the Political Parties Act, and Section 7. Those are the sections that I know very well, that because I worked on that legislation. I contributed on that legislation to show the importance of redefining a political party. Even in our own standing orders, it was very difficult to know which side is the majority and which side is the minority. Last Parliament, when we were removing Weta, the same Weta, from being a majority leader, it was a question of whether ODM can do it on its own or whether NASA. And our standing orders were very, very clear. It is a political party with the largest number of members represented. So even when NASA Secretariat brought in a letter to say no, Weta is Weta is a majority leader, the only one that could take the day was what is written in the standing orders. They need to take the Political Parties Bill, Act, and they also need to look at the Constitution. When you look at those three things, then you can be able to know who is a majority and who is a minority in the House.
And I know as Senator you don't like to interfere too much into the National Assembly, but the other day we heard Babu Owino saying, hey, it's my turn to be chairman of PAC, and John Badi should be happy with the nomination he got.
Let me put it this way, very bluntly. I fully support Babu Owino. Babu Owino and I traversed this country, campaigning heavily for ODM. We never even spend the night in our homes. So you come in, you go in there for like a couple of hours, you don't even see your kids, and then the next day in the morning you're up back in Wilson Airport, or you go and sleep in Pokot, you go to Turkana. Where was Mbadi then? I mean, let's just call a spade a spade. Where was Mbadi then? I have a lot of respect for Mbadi, but Babu Owino deserves to be given an opportunity to lead. He's a youth. He's been giving it all to the party, and I think it is our time. And I think, and I said it the other day, if the party will not be willing to reconsider their decision, we will start chatting our way. Nothing stops us from chatting our future. Nothing stops us from going around the country as well and talking to people and sharing our ideas with them. You know, right now it's about mentoring the younger generation. And truth be told, we really sacrificed. Really sacrificed.
It comes back to the question I asked you earlier on, is ODM dead?
Yes.
You said
I've spoken about mentoring. ODM doesn't seem to have a mentoring system in the first place.
Well, I think it behooves us to be able to develop that mentoring system. So you might call it rebellion, but I choose to call it mentoring. We want to mentor the future generation. And I call upon all the Kenyans, seriously, to consider us, to put us in the weighing scale and say, Ledama, what do you stand for? You know, Babu Owino, what do you stand for? I stand for a country that can be able to stand firmly and defend the rule of law, that can be able to give the youth an opportunity to lead. You know, we have learned a lot.
Now that you're in Senate, and you know, over the weekend, there was a prayer at the State House, and the president asked for the leaders to pray for the economy. You sitting in Senate, what do you think needs to be done for our economy to grow? Okay, besides prayer.
Number one, I think first of all we need to realign our existing resources, and we need to empower our institutions, our independent institutions, to be able to do their work. Jeff, I will tell you one thing, and my brother Hamo, I'll tell you one thing.
You mean Nick?
Nick, sorry. I don't know why. Oh, Nick. Yeah.
I think when you're campaigning around the country, that's a bit a lot.
Yeah. I'll tell you something. If you take an example of Narrow County, we generate a lot of on-source revenue. But is there a proper way of ensuring that all that money gets into the county revenue fund? And the answer to that is that no. So right now what we need to do is to have a candid discussion with these independent bodies, EACC, the Office of the Public Prosecutor, DCI, the Auditor General, the Control of Budget. We need to be able to introduce, fiduciary risks apparatus, or a system of analyzing the fiduciary risks. We need to ensure that all the money collected in Nairobi today, that money is deposited. Because it is not that our economy is doing bad. I disagree with the president that we need prayers. It's not that we need prayers. We are given free will by God. Okay? We choose to be corrupt, and we choose not to be corrupt. So right now, with prayers or no prayers, the most important thing is for us to be able to be candid with each other and to sit down and put numbers on the ground. Number two, what we need to do is to be candid with each other. We need to live within our means. The youth of this country are suffering a great deal. We talk about low-cost housing, but who is going to benefit from that low-cost housing? I'll give you a very good example. The other day, I challenged 3 governors, Narok, Kajiado, and Samburu, and I told them, our youth in these 3 counties are languishing in poverty. They have no way to start. So instead of us, just oiling our own path as leaders, instead of us trading with the county as MCAs, because that is what is happening. And these are facts, Jeff and Nick. Why don't we give this youth an opportunity? And the first thing we need to do is that if you look at the World Bank as an example, and if you look at the African Development Bank as another example, they do give grants to Kenya. So if you are given a grant, why don't we then look at, if we're talking about affordable housing, let's spend 1 million shillings, let's build a 2-bedroom house, give it to the youth, give them a mortgage for 20 years. Jeff lived in America. I think the first house he bought, he was given a mortgage with low interest for 30 years for him to pay slowly. If you spend 1 million shillings and you give this youth shelter, he'll be called to pay for 5,000 shillings a month. Even if you're a boda rider, you can be able to afford that. So the first thing we need to do is to make sure that we take care of our citizens, ensure that our citizens have housing. When they have shelter, then let's utilize the sun to make sure that we give them enough energy. Then when we do that, we create department stores around the small smart villages. I never voted for Ruto. I voted for Raila. I didn't support Kenya Kwanza, but the fact is Kenya Kwanza is the government now. They're the executive. So for me, my role is number one. First of all, is to check, scrutinize, and make sure that they are doing what is right. If they come up with a policy which I think will help this country, I support it. But if they come up with a policy which I think is going to kill the youth, I will defend the youth. So really, it's a double-edged sword. Do we continue living the same way we used to live, oiling our path, having people drive the most expensive vehicles in this country, and all they care about is what is within that vehicle of theirs, and or maybe where they live, the neighborhood? Yesterday I saw Ahmed Nasser posting something and saying that Karen will not allow certain kind of development to come up. Do we want to continue thinking like that, or do we want to think about the rest of Kenya? So really, what is happening in this country can be resolved with local solutions. We do not have to go in and borrow international solutions.
Are you hopeful?
I'm absolutely hopeful. I think I will play my role. I think we need to now, if I were President Ruto, I would look at the Azimio manifesto. I would look at his own manifesto and say, what can I borrow from the Azimio manifesto? I think one of the things President Ruto can borrow from the Azimio manifesto is to ensure, number one, that when you go to Narok, find out what thrives well in Narok, put up an industry that supports that activity. One, the dairy sector is huge. I am personally investing heavily with some friends in making sure that no milk leave Narok in its raw format, and increase the prices to the farmers, so that when a farmer is busy taking care of their cows, when they bring it and sell it raw, they can sell it for up to 80 shillings. If I make a shilling, so be it. I'll be uplifting the standard of living of that farmer. That's issue number one. Issue number two, we need to say, with the Azimio manifesto, what was good about, let's say, savings? I remember back in 2019, I proposed a bill, and I think later on Azimio adopted some of my proposals into their manifesto that talked about savings. Nick and Jeff, maybe you make 10,000 shillings a month, hypothetically. If you take 40% of that money and you save it, if you save that 40% and you learn to live with 60% of your income, the government can borrow your 40%. When they borrow your 40%, develop more projects. By the time you're retiring, you would have earned a lot of secured interest, good money from the government. Other countries have done that. Singapore has done that. The citizens of Singapore are not spread across the whole country. It's a very small country. A lot of them lives in, in apartment building, high-rise buildings. Well, they're not projects, but it is what is doable. We can solve the problem of Kibera by being open and honest. You're not going to build houses and then come and sell them to Nick and Jeff. You will build those houses and make sure that when you are building, you engage the citizens. And number two, the most important thing, you will see if the Auditor General carries out a serious audit, a forensic audit of all the governments, the county governments, you will find that, and there's a very simple way of carrying out that audit. Jeff, every county government has got a vendor list, people who supply to that county. We've got the register of companies. The best way to know whether there's a lot of nepotism, whether there's a lot of corruption in this country, is to go to the register of companies, carry out a CR12, know who are the owners of these companies, how are they related to the management of this county. Are they related? And I can assure you that in our county there's a lot of relations that I've been able to establish. So you need to stop that. Be open. Give competition. Allow people to be able to be creative, for them to be able to build that economy.